Councillor Hall, Councillor Inman, Councillor Lomax, Councillor Mackey and Councillor Sizeland. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Quinn and Councillor Collins, with Councillor Farrell as substitute.
Thank you for that. To receive disclosure of interest on any matters before the committee. Any disclosable pecuniary interests? If you can raise your hand. No. Any other interests? No. Okay. Any matters referred to the committee under the call-in procedure?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, if we move on to item agenda number 4, then the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder? That those are accurate. Thanks, Kath. Can I have a seconder to that, please? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Okay, if we go on to item agenda number 5, which is the Select Committee Working Programme. Any items to discuss at any future meetings? Councillor Taylor?
Thanks, Sally. May I pose a presentation from the council on cultural cohesion? There's some work being done over the hill, and I think it'd be really good for people on this side to see that work too, because there's often work that's not often shared or at the forefront of things, and I think it'd be really good.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. If we can add that. Anything else? No. Okay, thank you. If we can move on to item agenda number 6, the culture strategy update, and I believe Diana's going to present that for us. Is she here, Kerry?
Yes, Diana is here. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you.
Huge apologies. I was sat on the wrong meeting link. And then I had that paranoia, you know, when you're like, I'm in the wrong place. Right, I shall share my screen. Apologies, let me go back to the start. Can you hear me okay? Great. So, this is an update on the culture strategy work, which we're delivering for High Peak and also for Staffordshire Moorlands, working with an advisory group who are meeting on a regular basis. So today in the presentation, I've got some feedback from a public survey that we conducted. We've started to conduct some one-to-one and individual interviews with organisations who maybe didn't come to the Creative Forum sessions and haven't been involved in the process so far, or needed to dig a little bit deeper into some of those conversations. I want to share some postcards that we've got available for a little bit more community consultation, thinking about those who might not complete an online survey, but also thinking about a gap that we identified with talking to younger groups. We've got the outline of a strategy framework, which I want to present, and then to talk about progress review and the timescales for the strategy. So we had 120 responses to our online survey, which we did via SurveyMonkey. We had postcards, printed postcards, which went out into various different places into the community with a QR code and details of the survey. It was shared through some press releases that went out, and so it went out into local press. and also just shared out through networks. And whenever we held a creative forum session, we also talked about the survey and asked people to share the survey through those creative forum networks as well. One of the questions we asked was about how important culture and creativity was to people. And people talked about how important it was in terms of well-being, enrichment, identity and lifelong connection, community, and belonging. So how it brings people together, how it makes people feel a part of where they live, and how it enriches people's quality of life. People talked about learning and growth, and people also talked about their professional and economic values. These are just some of the open-ended responses that we had as a part of that question. Does culture make the High Peak a better place to live? People talked overwhelmingly positively about it. They talked about community and belonging, how it makes you feel less lonely. People also talked about quality of life. Without, if we didn't have those cultural activities, how that would affect people. Heritage and the environment, how it preserves our history, helps create a sense of pride in place. Creativity and expression, giving that opportunity for self-expression. And people talked, I guess, what Councillor Matt Taylor was talking about as well, tolerance as well. People also talked about economic and place value, how it attracts visitors and also new residents, people to come and live in the area, and how, the significant economic benefit to the region, and that idea of year-round interest of living here. Excuse me. We asked people about what the kinds of activities that they currently take part in versus activities that they would like to take part in, to get a kind of snapshot of that. Visual arts had a strong participation and remains popular for future demand. Similarly with community events, strong participation with continuing appetite for that. The biggest gaps where it wasn't meeting participation, current levels of participation wasn't meeting those aspirations, was workshops and classes, film screenings, creative activity in the landscape, and also museum and heritage activity. And I think we maybe can connect that with the closing of the museum and the Green Man Gallery. Smaller gaps were around talks and high street activity, and possible oversupply was around performing arts festivals, and volunteering, in that it's quite stable volunteering, but not necessarily aspirational. And this gives you, it's just a snapshot, a quick slide to see. Orange is what current participation is, and blue is aspiration. Where people participate in culture and creativity. So where are the local hubs within the High Peak? Buxton is that anchor cultural hub. And then Glossop, Partington Theatre, New Mills, Springbank Arts, smaller hubs including Hayfield. People talked about the Green Man Gallery, and also churches and community venues. People do travel slightly outside of the district to places like Macclesfield and Stockport for live music, theatre and arts events, and regional cities like Manchester and Sheffield being the most frequent big city draws for large-scale concerts, theatres and galleries. Derby and Birmingham also mentioned for higher profile cultural offers, and the occasional getting out of the north down to London for national scale cultural experiences. And again, that's just to give you a snapshot of some of the venues and places that people talked about in the survey. We asked about access with a rating of 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high, about how accessible creativity and culture was. Broadly accessible, 3.6 was the rating, and I guess wanted to compare it to like TripAdvisor and how we would feel about a 3.6. Actually, I think what we want is a 5. About 60% say it's regularly or really easy to access culture, but not universal. So there is a significant minority that face real barriers, with challenges most often linked to awareness, cost, time pressures and transport. And if those are things that if left unaddressed, they can worsen those inequalities. So there's an opportunity with the strategy to make participation really easy for everyone if we can focus on things like affordable and local provision, thinking about transport and connectivity. At the advisory group meeting, I think we talked about a model that Chatsworth are doing where they've got sponsorship for some transport. There's some interesting models anyway to look at. A clearer promotion of what's on and targeted support for underserved groups. And this again is some of the challenges. The biggest single barrier was people not knowing what's going on. Cost of participation, ticket prices, affordability of events, time pressures, competing demands, work family commitments, transport and location, travelling, rural isolation, feeling excluded, there's nothing for me. Specific, accessibility needs that people may have, lack of confidence, perceived low quality and lack of interest. Following on from the surveys and the creative forums that we held earlier on in the year, we've been talking to individual organisations. So I've recently had conversations with Buxton Opera House. I'm actually following up with another conversation to talk specifically to their engagement lead, Ali. Excuse me. Buxton International Festival, the Fringe. We've been having conversations with the Regeneration team. As a part of that, we've also had conversations with Capital and Centric, and a little working party feeding into the Buxton development. We're going to follow up next week and attend their Brainery event with local schools to do some more consultation with young people. High Peak Community Arts we've met with, we want to have conversations with, but haven't yet, with New Mills Town Council. We want to follow up some conversations with the Peak District, Virtual Schools, Hope Valley College, Hope Valley Climate Action. I think that's a conversation we've already had. Torvale Mill, University of Derby, and then some conversations across Derbyshire County Council. And Sam Whelan, this is the thinking about the future of maybe a culture coalition in the northeast of the county. So thinking about LGR and having some of those coalitions lined up, and also thinking about some of those places being priority places for the Arts Council. So yeah, just to give you a snapshot, we're probably about 50% there with the interviews. We're further down the line with the interviews on the Staffordshire Moorlands side. We're having to do it a little bit in advance with Staffordshire Moorlands than we are on the High Peak. We've produced some postcards which we're launching out into the community. Some have gone out already because we had the advisory group meeting last week and they've taken some out, but I'm going to drop some off at the pump room if anybody from the committee wants to get hold of some. But there are 3 postcards and there are ballot boxes as well that they can be popped into if they're going to go in somewhere where they're not going to be hosted necessarily. Although it is good to put them in places where we've got a bit of an active host. So for example, I know there are libraries and staff on the Staffordshire Moorlands side who will really kind of host them for me and encourage people to complete them. So there's a question around what makes it hard for you to get involved in music, art or creative stuff where you live. They're open-ended on the back. People can write whatever they like, and they could draw a picture, whatever they want. Fast forward 5 years, so thinking about the future and the fact this is a 5-year strategy, what music, art, events or creative spaces would you want to experience where you live that would make it an exciting place for you and your friends? And this is thinking about existing assets as well, things that are already here. What do you love most about your area? What makes it special that we should celebrate more? And for us to understand as well, maybe particularly with that younger group, what are the things that they're excited about and that they love doing. There are some things that have kind of started to come out of some of the interviews that we've done so far, emerging themes that are coming out. I think, we've got 2 national portfolio organisations in the High Peak, so it's kind of understanding their role and leadership within the strategy and in the future, and thinking about Let's Create and their plans. Spaces, demand for flexible, affordable, creative hubs, more platforms for local creatives, partnerships across sector, regeneration, education, health. Thinking about succession, smaller groups are really facing uncertainty and continuity risks. A lot of it connected to funding, burnout. Youth want informal, digital and outdoor culture. And strong grassroots inclusion with well-being outcomes. The framework for the strategy that we're working to is for an introduction to identify really strongly what the vision and values are for the strategy, to dig into the findings of the work that we've done, but other research and demographics and data that exists to understand the local context, how the High Peak also fits within the national context and what is the case for culture, to identify some strategic objectives, include some case studies, a proposed governance and delivery model. So currently we're exploring the idea of a place partnership, which could be a potential model that works really well, thinking about a partnership that's cross sector, but also it's a model that the Arts Council would be potentially interested in funding. It talks about them specifically aligning with a cultural strategy of a place. So yeah, that's something that we're exploring as a potential delivery model, with an action plan with some short-term, medium-term and long-term actions, with a RAG, excuse me, with kind of RAG flag, so we know where we are, what's going to be easy to deliver, some things are going to be more of a challenge, and then some targets and methods for measuring success. So the survey's been done, finished, the results have been analysed. Like I said, we're about 50% complete of our interviews. The advisory group continues to meet, and we continue with our research. Postcard consultations are launching in the community next week. We've got some youth engagement sessions scheduled in October. We'll finish that final round of stakeholder interviews and draft. We're starting to draft the strategy now. I mean, things are emerging already from the conversations that we've had. Our key deadline is to have a substantially complete strategy to council officers for the 5th of November, ready for cabinet and approval in December. And that is the end of that. Shall I stop sharing my screen? Oh, I didn't mention, sorry. Next Friday, the 10th of October, I've organised a visit to the stockroom in Stockport. It's come out very strongly during consultation around this idea of a mixed use facility across kind of community culture, and we know there's a potential opportunity with the capital and centric development as well. So I would like to extend an invitation. It's from 9:30 until 11:30, and I can send that out in email following this meeting. But it was just to kind of, it's come quite quickly because I had to get it based on the Deputy Chief Exec's availability at Stockport Council, which was a hard diary to crack the nut of, but he's going to show us round the stockroom and talk about how it fits within their wider regeneration plan for Stockport. But it's also around the kind of pitfalls of what's worked, what hasn't, and to talk to, because they've got council staff based in the building as well. The archives, the library, they'll be staff members there for us to kind of dig into some of that and have those conversations. So it was an interesting model, I thought, for the strategy, B for Buxton, and C for other aspirational kind of spaces and ideas that people have come up with during the consultation process.
Super,
Sorry.
thank you. No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for that presentation. I have visited the room in Stockport, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic facility. You could spend all day in there. The library in there for the kids with the round circular book things. It's absolutely fabulous. It's a real warm community space, and I think something like that within Buxton or the High Peak would be a real asset. Chapel does also have a playhouse who do art, so I don't know if you're aware of that. If we go to questions, if anybody has any questions and would like to put their hand up, and we'll start with those. Peter, you had your hand up first, so if we can go to you, please.
Oh, good evening, councillors. Excuse me. Thanks very much for that presentation, Diana. And I know it's a long process to bring this sort of consultation together, and I think you're all doing really good on that. I suppose my question comes out of we've talked about, I suppose, a mixed use facility, and that looks like Buxton might well be in the potential for something that would have that kind of mixed use site. So I suppose my question is around ensuring sort of a fair spread of investment. Being as Buxton as the anchor hub, how would we ensure equitable cultural opportunities and investment across Glossopdale, New Mills, Hayfield and other rural villages, so that the smaller hubs aren't left behind?
In terms of thinking about the governance structure and delivery structure of it, I think it's making sure with the place partnership that there, and like with the advisory group as well for the strategy, that there is representation from all of those places and hubs across the High Peak, so that those voices are heard. So I feel like as well the process that we've been through with the creative forums, having those conversations across the High Peak as well, has kind of fed into that. So yeah, I think that it's how the governance is set up and making sure that there is representation, and I think the strategy will be really clear in that as well, in terms of making sure it's represented. I mean, I know we did talk about Buxton because that came across as, you know, where people have been and what they have done, but I think that we're really aware it needs to reflect all of those voices.
Yeah, just and leading on from that, what types of funding pots are we looking at? I mean, we've talked briefly about the Arts Council, but what other sources of grants, micro grants, funding for infrastructure or for projects? What are we actually looking at securing?
So I have, again, it's something I'm kind of looking at the moment, is whether we could have a percent for culture policy that's developed. It's something that it's a bit of an amber in terms of a RAG status, because it's not a simple thing to agree and to set up, but I think it's got real potential in terms of being able to leverage in some funding through developments and Section 106 funding. I think it could be, so if it's some thinking about timescales as well, and LGR, it could be a brilliant legacy of the strategy if that was adopted. But there's a process to go through. I think that's, yeah, so have been thinking about it in different ways. I worked in Bury for a long time, and they have a percent for art policy and have done for a long time. And I think they really punch above their weight with culture. They have a sculpture centre, etc. And it's been probably about 20 years of having a percent for art policy and that level of investment. So that is something currently that I'm looking at including as a part of the strategy and action plan, as to how that could be a potential funding stream into delivering the strategy, because you do need 15% match funding for that place partnership funding with the Arts Council.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. Cheers.
Thank you. If we can go to Councillor Hall next.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Diana. Really useful insights from the public survey. Just a quick question and a comment. Question: the percentages are really interesting for the insights for the public survey. I'd be interested in knowing what the number of respondents is as well. But the other thing, a comment, is that there's no mention that I can see of the very thriving pub scene. Certainly in Buxton and across the High Peak. There's a lot of live music. A lot of it is free. Much of it is participative because there's a number of open mic nights. And whilst it's obviously dependent on buying drinks, but if cost is a barrier, you can always have a really quite cheap drink in a pub and get a free night's entertainment. So I'm surprised that hasn't come out more, and maybe it's just because it hasn't been probed. I think it would be interesting to include it explicitly. So yeah, thanks.
We've got Joss from the Tent People on the advisory group, and she's running a pub. I don't know if everybody knows. Where is it, Matt? I forget.
It's Hayfield. It's a George. It's a George at Hayfield.
Yeah, that's it. The George in Hayfield. And Joss has actually agreed to host some of the postcards and a ballot box. It'd be really interesting to see the comments, what comes back from actually, and maybe if there's another pub that you know of that's a great kind of cultural venue, that does lots of music or open mic, it'd be great to get one in another pub.
Well, there's one in New Mills, isn't there? I've forgotten the name of it, but it's one up by it's near the Millennium Trail, the Tor Trail, and in Buxton, I'd say probably either the Sun or the Cheshire Cheese.
Okay, that's
There's
great.
also
Thank you.
Rems in Chapel, they do lots of events as well.
Rems.
Yeah, Rems, they also host the Fringe.
Okay.
Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got quite a few art groups in Chapel. I just wondered if there'd been any dialogue with any of the people in the groups in Chapel.
I would have to go back and dig through who attended the creative forums. I haven't had any individual conversations with anybody. I don't know if any, so I'd have to go back and dig through the creative forums to see if anybody attended. But if there's anybody that you would recommend, that it would be good for us to have a conversation with, then that would be great.
Yeah, there's quite a few people actually, and there's quite a number of pubs in Chapel that does live music. Will you be putting out these postcards into Chapel?
Yes, I think we've probably had a good suggestion already for one in Chapel, which would be great. Any other suggestions or recommendations of anywhere where you think we'd get great responses to the postcards, then I'd be happy to take that, and we'll go and deliver them next week.
Okay, so I'm best emailing you, aren't I, with all the various yeah.
That'd be perfect. Okay. Any recommendations of organisations or places for the postcards would be welcome. Thank you.
Okie doke, thank you.
Thank you. I think Madeline I put something in with regards to how many people have been consulted. Did you say it was 120 that responded previously?
Yeah.
Is that answer your question, Madeline?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you. That was a really interesting, in the dark here, really interesting presentation, Diana. Thank you. I'm just not bothered to turn the light on. I'm really glad that you mentioned Joss and the 10 people and the George, because, and that they're going to be a hub or whatever you want to call it with the postcards, because, you know, just like Kath and other people, I'm concerned that they do get across the High Peak because they look really good. And I think if they're just in the pump room and we're hoping that somebody's going to collect them, it's not necessarily going to work. So somebody needs to deliver them, I think, to kind of put them in the places rather than people to come and collect them. And also about the George, they're kind of doing over Halloween, they're doing things like storytelling by the fire and tarot card reading and things like this. So there will obviously be families going to that. So I think a lot of pubs are not just about live music and drinks and the nighttime economy. I think other places are looking to get families involved, and it's a really good model. I think that's something that I don't know if Joss talks about a lot, but how you actually involve children and families in pubs, in the pub scene, so you broaden it, is something, because we've got so many great pubs, it's something we could look at.
Definitely.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Thank you for that. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks. Just sort of going back what everybody said, I'd just be interested to know what level of engagement in Hope Valley there's been, and where I know Hope Valley College was mentioned, but I didn't really understand to what extent you'd been consulting with them, and also to know where the cards are going out there.
Yeah, so Hope Valley College, I want to go and actually do a facilitated session with some young people at Hope Valley College. That's the plan. The other organisation that we were talking to in Hope Valley was Hope Valley Climate Action.
There are quite a lot of other art groups and that in the valley. In the different villages. I mean, Castleton has quite a thriving art group. There's theatre groups and everything. Have you been engaging? Do you need to know about them? I think.
Yeah, if you want to, if it's possible to send me through a list, that would be amazing. And I can't promise that we'll follow up with absolutely everybody, but I think but I think we can we can definitely get in touch with them.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Thanks again, Diana. I think, you know, if everybody wants to email in with their suggestions of places that might be suitable for popping these postcards. The more information that we can get, the better, really. Is there any more questions for Diana before we let her go? No more questions. Again, thank you very much. I'll be really interested to see what the findings are and the final outcome of your findings. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, if we move on to item agenda number 7, and I think Damien's just going to introduce that.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. So this is obviously, well, this is an opportunity to update you on the Move More strategy. So I'm really proud to be sharing this plan. As you remember, this is adopted in 2022. It's our bold vision about making moving more normal part of everyone's life in the borough. So it's focusing on creating or improving active spaces and places, you know, increasing inclusivity and accessibility, and trying to do as much as we can as we go along to embed physical activity in all the wider systems. So working with partners in health and public health and using the planning system. Obviously, would be remiss to one of my passion projects, been exec member for 6 years in the leisure, and we have our 10-year park strategy that underpins a lot of this work, which recognises that, you know, our parks and our green spaces are a vital asset to allow people to move more. Equally important was our decision to establish that council-controlled health and wellbeing company in My Active, which now manages our fixed assets and works very closely with our fantastic leisure and recreation team, who many of you'll have known and worked with in your wards on parks and other projects. So since we've launched that, we've made really strong progress building those partnerships, engaging communities on specific projects, but it's just part of the day job, the bread and butter that our officers and our partners do, and identifying the areas where we need some action. So this evening we're going to be highlighting just some of the key developments, share some successes, outline the work that'll ensure the strategy delivers that lasting impact that we all want. So I think Sally Curley is going to lead on the presentation, but there's myself and our head of service Elaine, and I know Rob Wilkes, I think the MD of My Active. We're all here, so if there's any questions that arise, because obviously this is a broad strategy about everything we're doing ourselves as a council, but also working with others. So I'll hand over to Sally and can help with any questions after.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhouse. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen because we've got a bit of a presentation. So hopefully this works. And I'm hoping you can all see that. Beginning, yeah, okay, brilliant. So yeah, I'm here just to give an update really on the Move More High Peak strategy, what we're kind of hoping to achieve and what's been happening really over the last couple of years. So I think, as Councillor Greenhouse referred to just before, our 2 key strategies that drive the work of our service are our park strategy, which I came back to talk to you about back in June, and some of the achievements through that, and obviously this is our other key strategy, so it's the Move More High Peak, and obviously the 2 are really linked, and I'll show you that as we progress through the presentation. So basically, Move More sets out a really bold ambition to make movement part of everyday life for everyone. It's rooted in fairness, opportunity and community, and it's being delivered through strategic partnerships, neighbourhood development and enhancements to key community assets. And the priorities there on the slide in front of you are around a collective message, place-based working, which we're shifting to kind of neighbourhood working, better health, accessible, safe and welcoming environments, and active children and young people. So the collective message, so what's that about? Well, it's about developing a collective voice that publicly unifies our shared approach. This is so that Move More messages will resonate as much within health, care, education, planning as they do within our leisure facilities and already within our communities. We will use this shared voice to communicate our actions, our learning and our progress. So it's very much about all the partners across the system singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak. Over the past 2 years, we've been actively engaging with health and wellbeing partners across the system to understand how we can bring that collective message to life. And this collaborative effort is now culminating in the development of a new Move More Better Health campaign. This is the vehicle at the moment for delivering our shared message, and I'll just talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. So what this means for our communities is that this collective positive message about movement in everyday life, coming from all sectors of the system that people are engaged in or with, will try to empower, enable and support communities, educate, myth bust and inspire, and support that really needed behaviour change with strong underlying messages from trusted sources. So just going back to what I said before about Move More Better Health, evidence has shown us that national campaigns using all sorts of multimedia work well because they actually speak to real people's fears and challenges. This Girl Can campaign led to over 3 million women getting active, and I don't know if it's had a bit of a resurgence at the moment, so I don't know if any of you have been privy to any of the adverts or on TV or radio, but it's kind of having another push at the moment. We Are Undefeatable reached millions of people with long-term conditions with positive engagement and behaviour change outcomes. So last year we launched the first of our online campaigns around better health, which featured videos and sound bites about the positive experiences real people had, mainly from the Exercise by Referral scheme, and how this not only helped improve their physical health, but also their mental health through social interaction. So moving on to this year's campaign, we're looking to continue work with partners and community groups around further filming opportunities, emphasising that it is safer to exercise with a long-term condition than to remain inactive. And we know that this can be a powerful tool for driving widespread behaviour change, including across the High Peak. This campaign will show relatable people from local communities, so it'll demonstrate older adults and those with long-term health conditions in spaces that people recognise. It will bust some myths around the whole concept that exercise is dangerous for me, and instead will focus on the fact that movement can help me manage my pain, my energy and my mental health. It will also help to normalise everyday movement, so things like little gentle walks around the park or taking the dog out or going around the block, chair-based exercises, gardening and other kind of low-level community activities. Once the campaign material is fully ready and available, it will be launched again online. However, this time we are looking at trialling the information in a couple of GP surgeries, hopefully one in New Mills and one in Buxton, utilising the sort of the TV screens that they have in the waiting rooms where we can play the videos and get people to start to see, you know, this kind of activity might be good for them. We're also going to have printable material so that there'll be leaflets and posters for people to take things away so they can see what actually, you know, they might be able to do in their local area. And I'd just like to show a little video now from the campaign last year, which is really, really lovely and really quite inspiring. So I'm hoping it'll work and you'll all be able to see it.
My name's Adele Gould and I am running chair-based exercises classes. It's a privilege. It's a privilege because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but not only that, you know that you're making like this huge difference to people's lives. And it's literally for everyday living, you know, like putting your coats, cardies, jackets on, seat belts in the car, the mobility to move your neck, to look for traffic when you're crossing the road. They also get that social aspect as well. So they get out, they see friends, they can have a natter.
I was putting my lawnmower away in a little shed and I literally just overbalanced and I was on like stone flags. I was on my own. So I knew I had to get myself up, I had nobody else to help me. And it was painful and it was a bit frightening. Coming here has given me more confidence now that I've got a little bit more strength. I really, really enjoy coming here. I'd really miss it if this class wasn't here.
I just love seeing people come together. They're happy. I know how much good it's doing them, but they're enjoying it.
So hopefully you all saw that. So neighbourhood working, another priority. This priority is all about working closely with our communities in their neighbourhoods to understand not only the direct health needs, but what other factors are influencing a person's ability to move more or not, as the case may be. And this includes schools, housing, community safety, parks and open spaces, employment, etc., etc. Over the past year, we've brought partners to the local community together to key target neighbourhoods across the High Peak, focusing efforts on communities experiencing the greatest health inequalities. And this is very much based on evidence of need, but also listening to our communities and actually hearing about their lived experiences in these places. So key areas of focus for this work has been the development of neighbourhood groups in Glossopdale. That was the first one. And now we've got more of a hyperlocal focus on Gamesley. New Mills, particularly looking at New Mills Eastward, Buxton, including Fairfield and Harper Hill. And we've also started work in the Hope Valley, where we've been understanding the challenges faced by rural communities and ensuring neighbourhood working supports the needs of these people living in these areas, which can often be a forgotten part of the High Peak. We will continue to strengthen these neighbourhood groups to better understand and support the needs of our communities directly in the places where they live. Active environments, and obviously this is massively where the park strategy and the Move More strategy very much align. So our parks and open spaces are key to ensuring people can be active and move more, whether this is by walking through a park to the shops or to school, through play or informal sports. They are free, accessible spaces and are vital to communities' health and well-being. The key principles which underpin active environments include accessibility, inclusivity, physical and mental well-being, and community ownership. And I just wanted to refer back to this slide, which you did see at the presentation back in June regarding the flagship project at Manor Park. And again, I just wanted to reiterate how transforming spaces such as this, traditional sports court in a park, into something like this with this whole host of equipment only really helps to promote opportunities we have through our parks to ensure that the Move More agenda is delivered. And children and young people. So obviously as a district or borough council, we don't have that statutory responsibility to provide children's services, but we do very much have a responsibility to ensure that the children in our communities across the High Peak are active, happy and healthy. We work closely again with partners to ensure that there are opportunities for children and young people to be active, both in and out of school. A key element of this priority is the implementation of the Play Investment Plan, which is delivering a successful programme of improvements to play and sports areas across our parks. And recent projects include, well, Manor Park, which is just about to start, hopefully next month. Eleanor Lane and Meverell Road redevelopment of the play areas there in Whaley this summer. Last year, we looked at Simonley Play Area and transformed that space, including massively improving accessibility to this space. And we also refurbished Coat Heath Skate Park in Buxton, where the voluntary sector are now delivering regular coaching sessions there. Our work obviously also involves supporting community groups and sports clubs to help them to provide opportunities for children and young people to be active. So finally, the next 12 months, what's the vision? I think it's around strengthening the strategic partnership alignment with Move More Better Health, delivering the campaigns where I see there's a real opportunity to get people moving, and that close working with the GP surgeries. Strengthen the service with cross-team working. So over the hill in Staffordshire Moorlands, there's lots of great stuff happening there. So it's about sharing the learning across both areas. To initiate and complete sustainable legacy projects. So that's to continue with the Play Investment Plan, improving our play facilities. And obviously we've got the wider leisure transformation plan. And then definitely to replicate collaborative design models like the Manor Park Sports Courts project, with a view to ensuring that the strategy principles and priorities are embedded in these design models. And I'll stop sharing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. That was a really comprehensive report and there was some lovely findings in there. Have we got any questions, please, for any of the team? You raise your hands. Pete. Councillor Inman, sorry.
Hi, thank you very much for that, Sally. And it's just some fantastic things going on, and I really love the Move More campaign. It's really filtering through, and you can see it in lots of areas all around the High Peak. And you know, congratulations on the hard work there. And there's loads of things going on. So you'll excuse me for my question, but it's part of the sort of job that I do. But how do you go about measuring the success of what you're doing? So what are the outcomes and the KPIs? So how do we know that more people are using the facilities? Or I can see that you can get that from data from people using a leisure centre, for example, but I'm thinking more of the outdoor things.
I think that is a really good question, and it's a really hard thing to measure. And I think in this line of work, we kind of are not rigid. We understand that things are going to take a long time. All this is about behaviour change in people. It's people who don't, who aren't obviously active currently, and it's going to take a long time to kind of shift that behaviour change. So it is really hard to measure and set strict KPIs against that that behaviour change. I think it's through things like you said, obviously hard data within our leisure centres, my active, the take up of the exercise by referral scheme, those kind of things. It's the stuff that's happening in the neighbourhood groups. So the neighbourhood groups we talked about, where they're those local groups, which are where we're talking about getting that message through, and people are starting to deliver stuff in those areas. But it is hard to really measure, that sort of increase in activity in a really sort of hard and fast sort of KPI way.
There is obviously some national things. So we have like I'm trying to remember it. So the Active People Survey. So that survey, there is it's quite holistic, and it tries to look. But that's sort of the benchmark across England. Every area we can look at. But obviously, more important to us is that lower level feedback, that neighbourhood, and you'll know that if there's an improvement to a space, or a space isn't up to scratch, people aren't using it as much. So a lot of it is anecdotal, and that's that neighbourhood work. You as a councillor, we work at that neighbourhood level, we get immediate feedback, don't we, if something is working or isn't working. So I think that's the beauty of it going to that sort of level with this work. Like I say, Sally, Kaz and others in the team sort of engage on it. It's part of the day job. It's in the title, but it's part of everything they do. So they're getting that constant feedback loop.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hall.
Thanks very much. It's brilliant, Sally, what's happening. But I'm exploring things that maybe to give you even more work. One thing that occurs to me is that we have some fabulous facilities across High Peak that aren't necessarily getting used, and I'm thinking about schools in the evenings. I just wonder if there's something that could be put into the strategy, maybe longer term, but for exploring collaboration to maximise access to indoor team sports, because this is really good facilities that are frequently not used in the evenings and weekends, and it would be good to be able to capitalise on that. I do appreciate, having worked with Thomas Moores on it, just how knotty it is, but it would really be good to undo some of those knots. The second thing is actually about swimming provision, and I mean, in Rachel's absence, it would be very remiss of us not to say something about this, because it's such a big campaigning point for her. But I mean, just a comment, in Buxton, we both use the Palace Hotel because it's actually more immediately accessible for individual swimmers, for families, for children, than trying to get into the facility in Pavilion Gardens. And I do think that we need to actually pay some attention to how we can use the facility there, so that it is more immediately accessible. And I appreciate it's to do with the ticketing system, but somehow it's being managed at the Palace, and it's actually cheaper than Parkwood as well. So there must be something that can be done.
Shall I come in first, and Sally, you can?
Yes, thank you.
So just on the first point about facilities, the next statutory report is a mapping process of the facilities, both council and
Yeah.
community, for that exact end. Obviously,
Yeah.
when we're working with partner organisations, it is hit and miss, but that is certainly what we'd want to do. And I think something that's come to this committee time and time again, and I know Councillor Quinn, who's not here tonight, about sort of sports hall provision, but we are mapping that. We do work. Sally and the team are always engaging and seeing and making sure we can maximise that or publicise that. And again, just the reason it's on there's a report following this is to get more information on that basis and to keep doing that. So I think you can have assurance absolutely that the team and the council will be doing that.
Yeah, that's really welcome. Thank you.
In terms of the swimming provision, it is a tricky one. So in terms of the total amount of pool space in the High Peak, we basically, for the population we have an undersupply, but pools are very expensive things. You're lucky in Buxton as well that there's multiple other than just the council. But I think where we have what we've always sought to do, and you'll see this through the strategy, is we try and prioritise underrepresented groups, and some of that includes sort of swimming lessons. So there is, in terms of the timetable, and that is the operator, our council-owned company, MyActive, that now does that, not Parkwood, just because I know you mentioned that, but it's not Parkwood, it's our own council control company.
Okay.
So there is constantly reviewing the timetable and maximising it, balancing. Obviously they're expensive things to run. We need to have an income to make sure that those facilities can be used for all, but also trying to prioritise the time we have for groups. So I know that has been fed into officers and to myself and MyActive. We've got the whole team here to hear that. So I think they're saying it's been heard, but it's not an easy thing. No, there's no golden bullet basically, but it's something that's under constant review. Don't know, Sally, if there's anything.
Just to add to what you said around the first point that Councillor Hall raised, is that absolutely my role to do those, negotiations and liaisons with those separate providers. So it's hard for us sometimes to influence or for us to have control over what does or doesn't happen when it's organised by a school or a private individual. But my role is to absolutely build up those relations and explain the needs in the community so that they are aware of them and know we've got, Buxton Football Club around the facility up at Fairfield. We've got, like, say, Thomas Moores when they actually shut and then have obviously reopened again now to the community. But that is absolutely my role to pursue those kind of avenues with schools. And we work really quite closely with this High Peak School Sports Partnership as well. And our partners, Active Derbyshire, who recently had a pot of funding to open schools up. So they were supporting schools through funding to allow them to open up, because often a lot of the issues are around opening and closing facilities and extra heating and extra kind of lighting, those kind of things. So we're all kind of working together collaboratively on that. So absolutely we will, continue to look at where we've got venues that could be opened up for community use.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lomax.
Thank you, Chair. Partly follows on from Councillor Inman's original comments. We're able to help people by match funding, putting some money into sports clubs, etc., etc. Do we actually help them put the bids in? And once they've got the money, do we actually look to see that they're fulfilling what their bid actually says? I'm bringing this up because I've been copied into stuff about New Mills Tennis Club, which was supposed to be massively helping the New Mills East area, and they put their fees up to something astronomical, to one of the most expensive in the country, I'm told.
I mean, I can talk generally about our approach, and maybe Sally, if there's some detail on that. But in terms of the support that the team give, there is that basically that is the business as usual. So there's been some specific projects, but wherever possible, we offer advice, the experience of the team. We've got a very experienced staff team, and also if there are places we can signpost, often any sort of community or other facilities, it tends to be that we only do match funding, like top up funding. So really that they usually have to generate those funds themselves, and we can help and signpost sort of, if it's a cricket club, the English Cricket Board, I think, is it? Provide, when it's football facilities, there's the Derbyshire, there's the FA, there's the Derbyshire FA, I think, as well. Sort of there's local, national, and obviously some of our help for that is sometimes our analysis, that we'll look at the provision, like I mentioned, about swimming pool will say there's an undersupply, there's not a sufficiency of X, Y, whether that's astro football pitches, whatever it might be. So we help in lots of ways. So some of that is providing data, obviously having the council's name on a bid and being in association with often adds credibility. There's lots of ways we do help, and there is help with that bid writing. We haven't got the resources to write bids for group as much as I'm sure we'd all like to do that. But I have to say, my experience in the 6 years I've had the leisure portfolio, we've helped a number of very small and more established clubs, teams, organisations to do it. There's a whole list, and actually it's something I need to talk to our comms team for us to promote more, because we do, as well as the stuff we do put out there publicly, there's a lot of unseen work and a lot of things that happen as a result. But Sally, I mean, you might be some examples you want to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, we do support clubs and groups to write, but where we can. Obviously, it takes a lot of capacity, so it's more about that enabling role, like Damien talks about putting them in touch with other organisations that may be actually able to help write, and also, identifying other pots of funding. That issue in New Mills, obviously they have the governing bodies, so the LTA, there'll be a regional LTA which will sort of liaise with New Mills Tennis Club, and if there's those kind of issues, if you're saying fees to join or fees to pay and play are a barrier, that's something that we would look into and we would help try and support. And again, that neighbourhood group that would pick something like that up, and we would look at the issues and we'd say, right, we need to speak to the tennis club and understand why that they're charging so much or whatever, and try and work through it. But we've been able to support a lot of clubs with almost what we call that final piece in the jigsaw. So they've gone off and fundraise for various bits and bobs, and then have come back and said, to help this project get over the line, we could need some support. So again, that's my role and the team's role to work with these clubs to support them and understand issues like that which may be preventing inactive people being active.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, the view of one or two people is the funds have basically been misappropriated because they have fewer members of the tennis club now. They've got decent courts than they had previously. I think Councillor Baker's got more details. Perhaps Councillor Greenush, you might want to chase that up. And if you don't get anything from me, I'll copy you some of the stuff I've been sent.
Yeah, well, send it over anyway. I think it'd be useful. You can send it to Sally, myself, and I'll liaise with Baker as well. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell?
Thanks. I've got a couple of questions. I think it's really good, and I think the like public health campaign sort of thing is excellent. I know how much this girl was successful. What I didn't understand was how that was being sort of promoted in the borough. You talked about videos being made, but and you did mention GP surgeries, but I didn't really understand what else was happening with them, sort of thing.
So, I mean, obviously there's the whole broad, spectrum stuff. So the This Girl Can campaign, we've started to link into them on social media and share some of their stories, which are currently coming out at the moment. So it's about that social media platform to do that. Our focus at the moment has been the Move More Better Health, which is really about being able to say to people, like I said in the presentation, that moving is more important than not moving. And it's the work with the GPs to try and get them to understand that. We did some consultation through Walk Derbyshire where people felt that they listen to the trusted voice, and the trusted voice is often the GPs, but it's difficult to obviously work with GPs because they're so busy, they've got so much to do. So if we can help them by providing videos and the sound bites and the information and the leaflets for them to have in the surgeries, so that they've got a suite of information that they know which they could offer to their clients, their patients, and say, this is available, have you thought about this, and make it easy for them. That's kind of the focus at the moment. So I was trying to get across that, a lot of these campaigns are really quite successful. And if we can get, into those places and work with those GPs, we've got some good relationships with some of them. Some of them are harder to get into and crack, but that's kind of where we're at the moment in terms of the campaign, is really around that. And the exercise by referral scheme, which obviously my active are heavily involved with, and we've got a bit of a review of that at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's interesting. The other thing was you talked about the rural aspect in Hope Valley, and just so that I know, because I'm not aware, and obviously we want to report back to our parishes what is actually going on.
So at the moment in the Hope Valley, and I don't know if you've met Emily, she's our place worker. So Emily Gates has been funded through some UK SPF money we had, and she's working quite part-time in the Hope Valley to try and she's hosted by Hope Valley Climate Action, and she's sort of supporting the active travel agenda, which we're then linking to the Move More, because as we know, active travel is very closely linked to Move More. It's about people reducing car use and walking and cycling more. So Emily's been doing, over the last sort of 8-9 months, engagement events in the different villages in Hope Valley, just trying to understand how they move around the place, what do they see, what do they want for their communities in terms of active travel and public transport, but also the movement agenda and getting people to encourage them to walk and cycle. So at the moment, like I said, it does take a long time to sort of have conversations with people to start embed those changes and to get that behaviour change. But Emily did a really successful event, I think, just this weekend gone, which was the Art Trail by Rail. And again, that was using kind of art as a way to engage people and get them to move more. So there was different things at the different stations, and the idea was people travelled on the train to the different stations, but some were walking and some were, and there's been feedback to say, actually, it was a really good event. They'd love it next year, but maybe we could have some guided walks from the station. So that's it's that behaviour change in the Hope Valley, and Emily's there at the moment, and we're hoping to continue her place role going forwards because she's really seeing some positive feedback.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Yeah, thanks very much. I think you're doing an absolutely brilliant job, Sally. I think the whole Move More strategy is absolutely fantastic. I feel in Hayfield we've kind of taken advantage of it quite well. Like the last piece in the jigsaw was helping the Hayfield Cricket Club get their pavilion extension built, and that was a fantastic, and you used that expression then, that's fantastic. And also with like the walking bus, and you mentioned the school sports partnership, and I think it really works well if you can kind of do things through schools. So I just think it's absolutely brilliant. I don't know if this is a relevant kind of point, but the active travel ambassador for the East Midlands, Alan Simpson, he was talking in Hayfield a couple of weeks ago, and he made the point that the biggest gains are with the smallest journeys, which is what you said. So I suppose my question is, are you working at all with him? Are you working at all with the East Midlands? Or are you still working with Derbyshire? Because I just feel there's a lot of energy and ideas coming from there, and hopefully money. I don't know if you've kind of linked up with them.
Not currently, we haven't. I don't know if Damien, but you're probably more.
So the East Midlands Combined Authority will become the Transport Authority in effect next year, and that's probably where most of the team's engagement with the county council tends to come through the public health team. And we've got some great public health workers in High Peak, so we sort of use them to speak to others. So that's obviously the active travel team at DCC. Some of that will probably sit between East Midlands. So again, it is a new partnership, it is a new thing to look at, but this is the beauty of using this collaborative approach, that actually with limited resources, not everyone's having 6 conversations, then we can use that. So I think it's at early doors. I think a lot of things with East Midlands Combined Authority are that it's quite a new authority. It's still establishing itself. There's quite a lot of the team, and its functions are either haven't arrived or are new.
Yeah.
So, but I think that is a perfect connection. It's great that you managed to get the regional ambassador for active travel up to Hayfield. So always very good when we can make the mayor and the combined authority know where High Peak is in a very large region.
Yes.
So they've been here quite a lot. Really feel like we're punching on that above our weight. So that's great.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think the approach again should give you assurance that anyone and everyone we can speak to for this agenda is a movement for change. We want to change people's behaviour, and that's exactly what his role is to do. So if MCA's got some money and we can help spend it, that's always brilliant as well. So it's not everything, but money helps things move faster usually.
Great, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, Sally and the team. That is fabulous, the work that's been done with Move More. If we can move on to item agenda number 8, the leisure provision in the High Peak. If you want to introduce that, Damien.
I think I already, in answer to Councillor Hall, so So I think the committee there's been a number of inquiries and questions at committee which are asking around what the lay of the land is. I know our chair, Councillor Quinn, has mentioned about sports club. So I think it was thought what might be best is to almost just show a bit of an audit. And this isn't exhaustive. And again, if once you go through it, if there are things that you would think that the team needs to be putting on this list, we'd really like to hear from you. Again, if you can't think of everything now and you want to email later, that's great. But I suppose this was just to present to the committee the list of council facilities, but also some known community facilities, not options. But again, there may be more. We know in our borough, we've got 5 towns, many little villages. So there's often lots of things. Some of them managed by parish and town councils, some managed by community trusts, clubs. So it is a thankless task trying to keep a directory of everything. It's not seeking to be every single thing, just those more prominent things that we could be aware of, support, promote, etc. I don't, Sally, is there anything in terms of the list compiling or anything helpful for your team?
I think it was interesting, obviously, because I think people think there's not a lot, and actually there is quite a lot of community facilities out there. Actually, there is quite a lot being provided, and like Councillor Greenhouse said, there are lots of other smaller village halls where there'll be activities taking place, and people sort of undertaking smaller activities that we're probably not aware of. So obviously, like you said, we can add to the list and make that a bit of a more comprehensive list. I think Councillor Quinn was mentioning about, I think last time and why it came about was where we've got these facilities, how important they are to communities. So, and where there is opportunities for them to be used, like for example, school sites where we know in the evening and weekends they may not be being used, how important they are. And I think it was the Harper Hill sports facility up there, which obviously had been closed for some time and is now reopened, and is obviously providing a much needed facility for the people of Harper Hill. We work closely with Youth Matters in New Mills, and they run the HAF, which is the holiday and food programme up there, for 2 weeks over the summer, and they've fed back to say it was absolutely needed up there. There's lots of children, lots of families that are inactive and need that kind of support, and it's been massively successful. So I think it just goes to show that these facilities are really quite much needed, and if through my role in the team we can continue those connections and those dialogues with these providers to ensure that they know they're doing a good job and support them where we can, really.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, I was aware of a group as well that was running in Fairfield. So they've been running classes, Peak Power Sports, they've been running classes in Chapel and Whaley. And over the summer they extended to Fairfield, and they were really successful, and a lot of those funded spaces were HAF, especially in Fairfield, and the difference that it made to those families and children was fabulous. The reports that came back for them were brilliant, and something that they're hoping to continue. So thank you for that. Councillor Lomax, you have a question.
Thank you. I think we probably had the debate about golf clubs. I can't remember if it was last year or previously, whether they should be on. I was surprised to see rugby clubs weren't on. There are several cricket clubs missing, Tintwistle and Charlesworth, I noticed. We seem to have some gyms on, but not others. As Sally's just said, Peak Power do something, Warrior Fitness in Whaley Bridge as well. Should we have dance schools on there as well? I mean, they're activities, aren't they? Gymnastics.
Yeah. I suppose that was the kind of what I was compiling the report was the extent of how far do you go. But if we think those are needed, then yeah, absolutely, let's add those to the list, because they are dance clubs. My daughter goes to Apex Cheer in New Mills. Really, really popular. So yeah.
Go on. We know why golf clubs weren't on there. I think I can remember the argument, but why aren't rugby clubs there?
Possibly just an oversight, purely an oversight.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell.
I noticed that Hathersage swimming pool was on there, but obviously that's in Derbyshire Dales. And as you know, I think we stopped giving any money to them. So I just wasn't sure why it was on there.
I think purely just because it was a facility that, and you're right, we did stop funding them, but that potentially people in the Hope Valley and other areas will use, just as an outdoor swimming pool.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but is there any chance that we could speak to the leisure facilities at Chapel with regards to using their facilities? We've just obviously lost the Mugger in Chapel, which is a sort of an all-weather place for the children to be able to go. And I don't know if there was something that the council could assist with in providing some facilities for children in this area. Don't know if that was a conversation that could be had.
So at Chapel, obviously, you've got the leisure provide, the gym, the sports hall, which is run by Parkwood. So that obviously remained with Parkwood, and they obviously run quite a comprehensive service there. The school obviously have their AstroTurf, which is used by them in the day and then is hired out at the evenings and weekends for obviously clubs to hire. There is an ongoing discussion which myself and Councillor Sizeland have been involved with the school in terms of the need for football in Chapel and trying to change the surface of the AstroTurf, which is a sand-filled AstroTurf, which is primarily for hockey and isn't ideal for football, into a football facility, which the school are really on board with. There's obviously lots of conversations to be had about funding and all that kind of thing, but that may become a better improved facility. It's not going to happen overnight, but obviously we're sort of working towards that. But yes, I appreciate that there's issues now in Chapel for young people now that
brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, if you could keep me in the loop with those conversations, that'd be great.
Definitely.
Any support that we can do. Super. Thank you for those reports. That was fabulous. I think we can potentially move on to item agenda number 9. Are there any questions that have been referred to the executive members? I'm not aware of any.
No, Chair.
No, nothing. Okay, we're going to move on to item agenda number 10. So if I can please ask for the exclusion of press and public, to resolve that the press and the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following item of business, as there may be disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12E of the Local Government Act 1972. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder to move into Part 2? Anybody proposing that we move forward?
You can propose.
Thank you, councillors. Yeah, I propose. Okay, Councillor Scott. Yeah, okay. If we can stop recording, please, Kerry.